right? Tag rugby stuff. If we don't have it, there's loads of alternatives, right? I was speaking to a club one time where I showed them, right, look, we do some open agility drills where you have to react to the men with the tags. And he said, no, we can't do that, we don't have any tags. Right? I said, you can hang a sock out of their shorts and pull the sock out, same thing. I said, oh geez, yeah, sure, they all have socks. Right? So, like, equipment is lovely to have, but if you don't know how to use it, or if you're trying to just use the equipment to be able to say that you used it, it's useless. Right? Body weight exercises when it comes to strength, we can the older lads, we can push them a little bit further, right? Instead of going for 10 seconds, we might go up to 20, 30, Jesus might even throw in a 40-second one to see how they're getting on, right? Core lifts, when it comes to, if they are getting into the gym, they can start actually getting onto bars and putting on a little bit of weight, right? And core stability progressions, again, the core stability work that we can do outside with these lads can be fun from our point of view, but it's fun from their point of view as well. Okay. Stamina, we can bring in our straight line stuff. Okay, we can bring in a lot of our straight line stuff. We can bring in a lot of running drills. We might have cones thrown all over the place. They have to go to a specific colour the whole time. Okay, so you might say, right, you've 30 seconds to work on white cones, right? But there could be cones of all different colours lined up all over the place. So once they go to a cone, they have to then react, get to a white, get back to a white, get to a white. Okay? So they're kind of mimicking movements of the game whereby they always have to change direction, but they're working their arse off as well. Fuel mix. We can bring a lot of fuel mix into this. And lads, with the fuel mix stuff, you can bring in a lot of stuff that isn't applicable to the game at all, but it's just going to blow the arse off them basically. Okay? So, stuff like boxing, right? No, you're not going to have two lads lined up against each other, right? But, you know, you could bring out, and there's hitch shields below, I know there's a couple of hitch shields. Throw a hitch shield on the ground and have a fella straddle it, and he's boxing it for 30 seconds. It'll completely wipe him out. Straight from that then, you'd get him into a skill-based, small-sided game. So, the reason for it is just to completely deplete the energy system to mimic maybe some part of the game where he's working, but then he has to be able to perform the skills of the game that we want under complete fatigue. Chances are every player that we bring out will be able to knock the slitter over the bar, okay, or pick a lovely pass out, pick the hand out when he's fresh. Can he do it when he's fatigued? And that's what's going to be most important. And the last one, mobility. At this stage, they should be aware when they come down, they have to warm up. Finish the session, they have to cool down. Something that's not really done, and a lot of clubs across the board, whether it's hurling, football, rugby, soccer, they leave injury management to just the medical, okay, or just the manager say, you're carrying a knock, you'd want to get it checked. Oh yeah, I should get it checked. We need to start putting responsibility back on players at this age to know how to manage injuries. It could be a case of that there's a long-standing issue with hamstrings, then that person just needs to do their own flexibility work at home. If someone picks up an injury in training, how do they manage it? Okay, we obviously rest, ice, compression, elevation, but if it's still picking the next day, what do they do then? Okay, so they need to take a lot of responsibility on how they manage injuries, and especially at this age where they could be playing a lot of different things. And just as an example, there was I know I'm aware now, I just don't want to give names or anything, but there was a specific player that I was involved with, a senior player with the club, and he was playing inter-county at the time, so he knew that we were playing a championship match at the weekend. And we were training on the Friday night, because the match on Sunday we were going to have a bit of a run on the Friday night. And he texted the management on the Thursday night to find out was it okay to go training with the soccer club. And the same player had been complaining about stiff lower back and tight hamstrings, and groin was picking. So he was never informed at this age how to manage himself or how to manage injuries. Thought it was perfectly normal to go training with soccer club on the Thursday, train with us for a light session on the Friday, and then try and go and play championship on the Sunday. Okay, so I think if we can get the education into them at a young age, it feeds in when it comes to adult then. and everything is a lot easier. If you're trying to persuade an adult to manage his injuries, sometimes it's like pissing into the wind. I mean, it's very difficult. Okay. So now that's it. Our presentation done. Now there's a lot of stuff outside, lads. Right? There's a good body of stuff outside. Is there anyone just wants to make comments, even from your own coaching point of view, when it comes to doing agility drills, ladders, hurdles, anything like that, before we go outside and just see how we're going to tackle a session like this?
You said there about the aerobic, you needed that base, you know.
Mm.
What age you talking there?
Same. I mean, I wouldn't be going doing anything with anyone under 16, being perfectly honest. When they come up, like, you would be hoping that at that age they're active enough anyway, that when they come into you, what you do in training and with matches is enough for them. But you notice when they come to 16, 17, up to minor, the only activity they're going to do is what you've done here. So you need to get as much work into them as possible, because once they go away from you, they're driving around in the car because they just got the old L or the N plate, right? They have the girlfriend, can't go running because the girlfriend can't go sweaty into the girlfriend, right? So the only activity they're getting is down with you. So if you decide, right, he's doing, we trained last Tuesday, no match at the weekend, we couldn't train the other days because it was raining, we're back down there now on a Thursday, a week and a half later, and he's done nothing in between, or the whole lot of them have done nothing in between. First thing you might do is run them for maybe 10 minutes. At minor or under 16, and say, right lads, no, we can get into it because, you know, we've got the cobwebs out of the system.
So like, say you have a quarter of your players under 12 and 14, wouldn't be very fit, say? You just do your drills, you don't try and...
Well, you can kind of get conditioning into them kind of in a sneaky fashion.
Yeah.
With the small-sided games, put them under pressure. So you might have four or five aside on a bigger scale, a bigger pitch. So if we're going across the pitch, if we're playing something as basic as end ball, where you score by just either striking the ball into the end or carrying the ball into the end, you can put restrictions on the game to say, right, the only way you can score is if all your players are in the scoring half. So straight away, the kid that likes to stand at the back and go, yeah, I'll wait till he turn around and I'll score up this end, he has to work hard to get in there, or else his team can't score. But then he has to work hard to get back out again because the team wants to score down the other end. So you're making them run, you're making them work. And again, time restriction, bring the rest period down, reward them with a bit of an extra rest period, but then go hard at them again. And with kids like that, if it's competitive and it's game based, they'll work and work and work. They won't realise they're working, you know. Whereas adults, they will realise they're working. They'll find a way to kind of hide in a corner or something.
With agility, would you have to do drills so that they're doing whatever agility you write, that you're not kind of doing it in a game where they might be actually doing it wrong?
Yeah, and we I suppose that kind of feeds into ladder work, and I'll show you a couple of different footwork drills in the ladders. But lads can be brilliant at ladders, but then they can't move in a game. And on the other side, the fella could be running through a ladder every time at training and tangling himself up. But when it comes to a game, then instinctively he's able to change direction and move a lot better than the other lads. Like, the ladders are brilliant, but they can be a curse as well, and we see it outside. But it's to be honest, when it comes to the agility stuff, it's just about foot placement more than like once they get their foot placement right and they're able to use their upper body as well, all the agility work improves.
The small-sided games are coming for, say, 13s and 14s. 3-sided, 5-a-side, and I know you'll probably tell us below.
There's to be honest, you can put the variations on it. You say whatever's manageable as well. I mean, if you have 18 lads in front of you, if you have 24 lads in front of you, then you could go with, if you had 4 6s, you have 2 games. You know what I mean? If you have 6 4s, you have 3 games. So like it depends on spacing, it depends on everything like that. But depending on what you want to get out of it as well. If it's from a skills-based point of view, and you want to get as many touches, them to get as many touches on it as possible, then you'd probably restrict the numbers. Conditioning point of view, numbers don't really matter, it's just space then, and depending on what you want to get out of it. The tighter it is, the more contact there's going to be, the wider it's going to be, and the more restrictions you put on it, the more you can make them run.
And you were saying 5, that's 5 metres square. small
Yeah,
side.
like a 5 like 3v3 in a 5 metre square, they'll be nearly on top of each other, but it just means they're going to be baiting the head off each other inside there.
Yeah,
You know. We anything else?
Just on the running one, with the variety, that you're saying that you shouldn't do too much line running and straight running and that stuff until they're 16 really.
Yeah, well, it's on, and like, it's not that it's going to do any damage to the young lads. It's just from my experience of keeping them interested, keeping their attention. Being honest, like I'm a PE teacher as well, and if I'm coming into a batch now where I do 5 weeks of health-related fitness with second years, third years, fifth years, and sixth years, and I know that I can bring the fifth years out onto the pitch and spend 40 minutes running them up and down in straight lines, and they keep going because they think, right, we've minor championship there now, and a couple of weeks and I'll be flying fit for it. Whereas the second year will go, I just want to kick a ball. Why am I running up and down in a straight line? And it's going to be the same thing when they come down to training. They're going to say, yeah, they came down hurling training, he ran me up and down. So, like, it's just an interest thing more than having any detrimental effects physically. And like we can all have ideal ideas in the head how we're going to get lads fit, how we're going to get them ready to play. But unless you get them to buy into it, nothing will improve. So it's a matter of saying, right, no, don't get me wrong, if you know your players, and as coaches you know that I can do 7-8 minutes of straight line, might be 13 back, 21 and back, 45 and back, 65 and back. Right lads, we're going into a game now. And we'll come back to that again later on. Whether it's 14s, 15s, then by all means introduce it. But personally I wouldn't, from the point of view of keeping lads interested, keeping them moving, keeping them as much... You're trying to get lads as much ball time as possible at that age. You know.
I'd say for off the mark stuff, then you still probably have to do some sort of, like we said, in the 13-yard line or something.
Yeah, again, like you can reaction base it, yeah. So like, simple one that we would do coming into, with say Ross Carberry coming into championship season would be inside forwards, inside backs, and then inside forwards, inside backs would work end line to 13, and half backs, midfielders, half forwards will go 21. So the 13 have to go, the inside lads have to go out to the 13 and back in the same time that the other lads get to the 21. So there's a turn coming into play because it's position specific, but at the same time everyone is paired up. So if I'm a corner back, I'm paired up with a corner forward. So that I'm waiting on the toes. It could be the bounce of a football, it could be a clap, okay? It could be a hand being thrown up. Whatever the stimulus is, they have to react to it to get out in front of their man, beat him on the turn and beat him back, and at the same time beating your man on the longer run. But so it's position specific, but when you bring in a reaction into it, it's getting off the mark. And a lot of lads are like, when you bring in the term aggression to sport, the first thing they think about is giving a lad a dig or giving him a big shoulder and putting him on his arse. You can have personal aggression as well, from the point of view of the more aggressive you are when you want to react and get off the mark, the better start you'll have, because the aggression is channeled into the legs to get your mechanics right, to get your drive off the mark. So naturally a lot of lads will be very, very quick, like off the mark. Some lads won't, they'll take an age to go, but it can all be improved. And most of the time how it's improved from a sports point of view is don't allow lads to get flat-footed. So if you see play developing coming down to you, and straight away if you're on your toes and you're ready to react, you're going to go. If you're saying, right, I see the play developing, oh Jesus is coming into me, you're going to go, you're going to be lethargic then. So it's more, again, tactics and technique to get the reactions there.
Just as you mentioned it there, just on the flat-footedness with guys, like it would be telling them 20 times over a session to stay on their toes and prevent you to go back down and back down. What's the best way of improving that? Is it through drills or agility or movement?
Well, to hammer it out on you, just punish them, like. You see, it's like, well, depending on the ages. I mean, you're always going to have, and I see it even from a PE point of view, you're always going to have the one lad that'll stand there, and then when the ball comes to him, he'll just bang, yeah, goal, and then straight away you see the next play developing, and he's ball up to him and goal. He might get 7 or 8 goals in a session, but he mightn't have run from making me to you, like, you know. So the best way to do it is through the drills, kind of educating to say, right lads, if you're quick, if you're ready to react on your toes, now it's obviously not going to be feasible to make them for the whole session, for the whole match. But you can always say, look, as play is developing and you see it coming towards you, then you start getting on your toes, getting ready to go. Even it might be just a simple little bounce. Some lads are comfortable to go on their toes. Okay, it could be just moving the legs in any way, shape or form to keep them ready to be able to react to move. But so no, just you're always going to get one or a couple of young lads that just.
But isn't that kind of some players have that mental sharpness? That's something that you can't coach.
Yeah, and look, the mental sharpness, but like you know, with the fellas that you know full well that are just going to stand there, you can still get them ready to move. You know, when the ball comes in, if they're mentally not ready, physically they might be ready, but they just won't make up the time because they just don't have even the peripheral vision to be able to see it coming in. Like, you know, unless it comes directly at them, they're not going to move. Like.
We had a coach years ago, he used to always say the first 2 steps were in your head rather than your legs. Like, and it's sharpness sometimes that you just can't. Some players have it and some players don't.
Yeah, but we'll see it outside now. Like, there's a drill. You get lads to stand with their feet shoulder width apart, flat-footed, and on the clap they have to sprint past me. And the very first step that every one of them will make, there's 5 lads coming down, is there?
It's fine, yeah.
I guarantee the first step that every one of them make will be backwards first. So instead of them going after the ball there, if they're flat-footed, the first thing they're going to do is step back to come forward again. So they've lost the step. If they're on their toes and their body weight is slightly leaning forward and the ball is there, they can go forward after it. So they're on the front foot straight away. And a couple of things, and I guarantee it, all 5 of them flat-footed will step back first. Guaranteed. Okay? So if you're flat-footed, you're going back to come forward. If you're on your toes, hopefully you're going forward.
Colin, you're saying there about fellas saying match that he doesn't move, okay, but does that come back to training? Because I know 13s, 14s now for the last 6 or 7 years, the same few lads, you know, that they won't. And typically the case that they don't have ability, but they have, but they just won't push themselves.
Yeah,
And
I
like
mean,
what
look,
you know,
yeah,
if they don't do it on training, they won't do it in match.
yeah, and I think when it comes to players that just won't
You can be
push
shouting the whole
themselves,
session,
yeah, you can
know,
shout, you
shouting
can be
at
as
them.
organised, you can be as planned, you can have the best training session, but stuff like that is completely out of our hands. Now,
Yeah.
is it a case that they want to be doing something specific to grab their interest? But sometimes, and you know yourselves, no matter what you do with lads, they're always going to be lazy. And it comes back, like you said, it's not an ability issue, it's not a footwork issue, it's not any physical attribute that's missing, it's laziness. And I think I spoke about it last week anyway, the fact that, you know, kids today anyway are kind of, they're naturally just lazy, like everything gets done for them and everything can be done for them with their thumb, like, you know, whereas it's kind of a natural thing, you know.
Alright.
Anything else? Right, so what we might do, lads, look, might just take a break.